hope so to needless reason. Nobody feel about is the vibe we dealing. It's not a solution. Yeah. Love, respect, selfishness and cooperation. That's how we need to build a strong nation. We are the people to make the changes. We are the changes to be obeyed. And all the things that we feel up in my back and blue skies. I don't think that people get victimized. Let's work together for better. We got to unite. Belize, yeah. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Another day is here. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. We gotta keep moving. Na. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Everybody gotta put the time in. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Voice of opinion and place your calling. Get up, make every day count up. Wasted people, do your part, play around it where you need to. You can tune in for motor in your vehicle. If you got a problem, pick up the phone. Why wait till time calling? It's a show with no matter even if you're at home. Just call in. Double your bed. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Another day is here. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. We gotta keep moving. Na. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Everybody gotta put the time in. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Voice of opinion and place your calling. Double your bed. Be yourself, see yourself. This is the show that people believe. Our hope so to needless reason. Nobody feel about is the vibe we dealing. It's not a solution. Yeah. Love, respect, selfishness and cooperation. That's how we need to build a strong nation. We are the people to make the changes. We are the changes to be obeyed. And all the things that we feel up in our black and blue skies. I don't think that people get victimized. Let's work together for better. We got to unite. Belize, yeah. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Another day is here. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. We gotta keep moving. Na. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Everybody gotta put the time in. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Voice of opinion and place your calling. Double your day.
Welcome. This is WUB, Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes on a Friday, the 13th day of December, 2024. And we welcome you to the program. Good morning, I'm Nuri Mohammed. And as usual, we have a good program lined up for you this morning. We have a guest coming in early. And we will open the phone lines and make sure that we engage in the conversation. We are going to first take a look at the weather. The inclement weather that we've been dealing with, but let's see what the forecast is for this weekend. Our forecaster this morning is Miss Rosales, Crystal Rosales.
Good morning. Cool and moist conditions linger over the area. The 24-hour forecast. Skies will be variably cloudy. Showers, if any, will be isolated today. Then, a few showers and periods of rain will occur mostly along the coast and offshore late tonight. High temperatures for today will reach around 80 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 82 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and 70 degrees Fahrenheit in the mountains. Then low temperatures for tonight will reach around 70 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 65 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and then 59 degrees Fahrenheit in the hills. Winds over the open sea will be from the north to northeast at 10 to 20 knots, and sea conditions will be moderate to rough. So please note that operators of small crafts are advised to exercise caution for occasionally gusty winds and locally rough seas. And then high tides occur at 9:03 this morning, then at 7:56 tonight. Low tides at 1:45 this afternoon, and then at 3:32 tomorrow morning. The moon will rise at 3:46 this evening and then set at 5:28 tomorrow morning. Sunrise is at 6:14 this morning, and then sunset is at 5:20 this evening. The extended forecast. Skies will be cloudy at times, with a few showers and periods of rain occurring around the country on Saturday, then mainly over the coast and south on Saturday night. And now for the sargassum update. Impacts, if any, from sargassum will continue to be minimal, as observations show little to no sargassum over our area. And this has been this morning's weather report from the National Meteorological Service.
The first private radio in Belize since 1980. Crime FM presents the news. Informative, accurate, current information, local, regional, and international news, weather and sports. And now, the news.
Seven members of the Belize Peace Movement, BPM, has filed an application for the judicial review in the High Court as a follow-up to their redistricting case, particularly as an early election seems to be looming on the horizon and no redistricting has occurred as constitutionally mandated. The BPM members are seeking several reliefs, including a declaration that Schedule 1 of the Representation of the People's Act, ROPA, is unconstitutional and undemocratic. They are calling for a declaration that the Elections and Boundaries Commission cannot rely on said schedule until it is made compliant with Section 91 of the Belize Constitution, which sets out an electoral division must be, quote, nearly as may be an equal number of voters eligible to vote, end of quote. The claim is dated November 21. The BPM is being represented by attorney Sharon Pitts. As it turns out, the government has gone for high-powered attorneys for representation. It has retained senior counsel Eamon Courtney from Courtney and Koye LLP to defend the Attorney General's ministry, and senior counsel Godfrey Smith from Marine Parade Chambers to represent the Elections and Boundaries Commission. We hear from one of the claimants, Will Meher.
Earlier in the year, the Election and Boundaries had made a recommendation and they took it to the House and it's sitting there on a shelf somewhere. It was never debated. So we went back to court because we know that in 2025 there must be an election. And in 2020, the now government promised, like as soon as they get in, they would have redistricting. And it's been 4 years and no they're redistricting. So we just want that the government do the right thing according to the Constitution. It's the Constitution that's saying so. It's not so us. So we were surprised when they went for the big guns, all these top-notch liars that we, the taxpayers, will have to pay to try and keep the thing wrong, because it's wrong the way it is set up right now, where you have constituencies like Sand Creek West and Toledo East and West, that they are so huge compared to this small Belize City constituency. So, I mean, we just want the government to do the right thing. They promised they would do it in 2020. It's 4 years later, going 5 years later, and they still want to push it back.
Mejia says that they had issued securing legal representation and thank Sharon Pitts for coming on board.
And I want to really applaud Sharon Pitts for taking on the case. I mean, we've contacted a number of Belizean attorneys who, they don't want to piss off the government or things like that, so kind of like backed off. But, Sharon believed that what we are doing is the right thing, and she had taken the court. And I wanted to use this opportunity to also appeal to any attorney that we may have missed to come join this case, because at the end of the day, this is for Belize. It's not for the peace movement. It is for all of us. And, whenever corruption exists or whenever wrong exists, it's the whole country that suffers. And that's something that we want to avoid.
I know it had been said that for the previous case, you all were going into your own pockets. I'm not understanding that Ms. Pitts will do this pro bono, right?
Right. She's not doing it necessarily pro bono, although she's giving us she's being very, very more than reasonable with us. So we also want to appeal to the Belizean public to really support us so that we could also hire more attorneys, because like I say, at the end of the day, it's about Belize. It's not about Will Mejia. It's not about Paul Morgan. It's about Belize and to correct what has been wrong for the past 15 or 20 years. Because during the Barrow administration, they had also promised that a redistricting would take place, and that never did. The senior administration came in, and he said that when they get in, that there would be redistricting. And we're just like amazed that there's 4 years and no redistricting. So we're appealing to the Prime Minister to do the right thing. I mean, this is not rocket science. We have people we know with today's technology, you could sit right there and do this redistricting thing in a matter of hours.
While the BPM is regrouping to discuss this latest development, Mejia says that he will go to jail if the costs are awarded to the government and they can't pay.
Yeah, we've definitely thought about that, but we believe that it's the right thing to do for all of Belize. And if that happens and we have to go to jail, then we will go to jail for doing the right thing. Many people have gone to jail for doing the right thing. And if we have to go to jail because we can't pay those top-notch attorneys, then we will probably have to do that, because we definitely don't have that kind of money. But again, we are calling on the Belizean public, all these different organizations, to stand with us, because it is the right thing, not only for us, but for all of Belize.
Mejia is also appealing to the unions and the business community to support the BPM in this cause. He reminded that corruption is bad for the entire country and that we need free and fair elections. In response to the deadline of December 31 given by the National Teachers Union, Belize National Teachers Union, BNTU, to the Ministry of Education for the payment of outstanding increments and allowances for some teachers, the ministry has committed to getting the payment out by Friday, December the 20th. The BNTU has announced that if the outstanding payments are not made by the end of the month, they will protest in January. The letter is dated Monday, December 9th. The letter dated this Monday, December 9th, was sent by CEO Diane Mejia She writes in the last paragraph that, quote, the work to ensure that those teachers who are due increments and allowances has not faltered, end of quote. The rest of Mayor's letter focuses on reminding the union about all the assistance that the current administration has provided to teachers, as well as measures it has taken in their benefit. The list includes financial assistance and scholarships, teachers now being able to access NHI land so that teachers could become first-time landowners, and a land clinic for teachers. The resolution to Proposal 22 in their collective bargaining agreement was that remained unresolved for 15 years, and the teachers at the secondary school level receiving allowances previously only allowed to primary school teachers. Andre Passy Halak is the businessman from Cairo who took it upon himself to launch a dollar fundraising drive to assist the 10 families who lost loved ones last Saturday in a single traffic accident on the Benkley Road. On Tuesday, Halak turned over to each family $2,140.50. In total, he received donations of $25,680. We note that Halak had previously committed to donating to an effort organized by Benjamin Garcia in light of the to light up the Hawksworth Bridge to add more Christmas feel to the town. After the unfortunate incident, Garcia secured approval from some who had already donated to that effect and to that effort, and to assist the grieving families instead. 30-year-old Jasmine Rodriguez and her 4-year-old daughter Giselle will be laid to rest today at 10 o'clock at the Sacred Heart Roman Catholic Church in San Ignacio. Jasmine leaves behind 2 sons, aged 8 and 10 years old. Agricultural Minister Jose Maye has reported that during his recent trip to Palenque, Mexico, along with Investment Ambassador Jaime Briceño, the Mexican Minister of Agriculture committed to provide a decision in a week's time about the exportation of Belize's produced coconut. According to Minister Maye, they had been asking for such an assessment since April of this year.
Mexico has agreed to us to export coconut in a certain farm. We have been saying, can we do it in another way, a way that will cost us less maquila, less labor, and can make us competitive. We had asked them since April to do a risk assessment, and they hadn't. During that time, they were going to elections, so I guess that the technocrats didn't want to commit until there was an election. Now the election has happened, there's a new minister, and we said to them, kindly respond, and Dr. Verdeguer was very firm. He said, we will respond to you in 1 week, we will look at the pest analysis, and I'm sure after they do that, Belize will be in a very good position to say to them, see, we have no diseases, no pests of quarantine importance that can affect your agriculture, that you will risk anything. There's no risk. And so I am confident that we will do well when that risk assessment is done.
According to Maye, there are currently 20,000 acres of coconut planted in Belize and counting. According to a labor force statistics released by the Statistical Institute of Belize, SIB, September 2024 data showed that there were roughly 1,200 new jobs countrywide. However, the labor force, or persons who are able to work, actually decreased by some 1,400 persons. While the SIB does not yet collect data which would explain this decrease. SIB Director General Diane Castillo explained what could be happening.
Yes, there is some information there that we can look at once we have the time to look at it more deeply, because there are different reasons for persons leaving the labor force. Some persons might become discouraged. You might have persons who are aging out and going into retirement. And as we saw when we published our census results, our younger generations are tending to be smaller, and our population is starting to age. So there are different factors that could lead to it. So all we can say for sure at this time is that we saw a gain of about just under 1,200 new jobs, and at the same time we saw about 1,400 people fewer or less in the labor force.
And that's our news package for this morning, the 13th day of December 2024. There's more news coming up in the program that follows us, which is the Morning Stew, an update at 12, one at 3, and a full broadcast at 5:15. All on CRIM Radio. Here on XTV, we bring you the entire news package at 6 o'clock this evening. It's exactly 7 o'clock in our studio. We'll take a short break, come back, and we'll open the phone lines for this morning. We do have guests coming in later on this morning, and we ask you to stay tuned.
The first private radio in Belize since 1989. The news. Informative, accurate, current information, local, regional, and international news, weather and
2024. And we welcome you to the program this morning. Our phone numbers are now open at 280-5848, and we welcome you to call in. I didn't get a chance to comment on this tragedy that took place, the traffic, we have to call it incident, as one man said in I think it was Facebook, or I read it some time ago, and I remember Mr. Torres to drive home that we're not having road accidents, but we're having road incidents. And the difference is that an accident is when everything is going as properly orchestrated, planned, disciplined, and then something goes wrong. That's considered an accident. But how can you call a man who sits and drinks in a bar and then gets in his vehicle and then drives on the roadways that we have, and then when something happens, accident happens, we call that an accident? That cannot be an accident, because an accident, and you could look at the definition of an accident, that does not fall into an accident because you willfully contributed. And you have brakes not to work. You're driving on the road and you realize that, man, I have to change the tire, but I want to try to change it. And then you get I see I'm calling it accident. Then you get in a road incident. And you are referring to that as an accident. But we have been calling this thing RTA for umpteen years, and it will take a mindset to change. But you could see the sense in that. You cannot sit, drink, get in a vehicle. You recognize that, as a matter of fact, I could say this, that in some jurisdictions, if you are in a place and the bartender is giving you drinks after drinks after drinks, and then leave it up to him and say, well, are you the drink? He has to have a social conscience and say there's a possibility that this man here is driving, doesn't have a designated driver, as they say, and so I am responsible to do something to ensure that that man does not get on the road because of the possibility that he may kill somebody while he's out there, or kill himself. And so in certain jurisdictions, you are actually taken to court, taken into court, I should say, and questioned as to, did you not see that this man had too much to drink and you still allowed him to get more drink to go on the road? Aren't you partially responsible for what happens when he gets on the road? Again, we have said that there are three areas, and I wrote about this some time ago, that there are three areas I think we need to look at, because this is not the first tragic accident. This is only a tragic accident by volume, not necessarily by incident, because we've all felt the pain of people being killed on the road, whether relative or very close friend. And by the way, when you kill somebody on the road, somehow there are other charges that are brought against you, like without due caution, etc., etc. But when you kill the person, the charge is manslaughter by negligence. Do you know of anybody that has gone to jail as a result of being charged and found guilty of manslaughter by negligence? I went back in my memory and I could not recall. It maybe have happened, and maybe you can call and remind us, but I don't remember a person being jailed, seeing the consequences of going to jail because you have cost the life of this individual. No, it's usually you pay, and this again, the magistrate or the justice system determines your value. And so you may get 2,000, you may get 4,000, you may get 5,000. How about a life that is so valuable that you must pay 50,000? When are we going to be stiffer on the road safety in the country? And yes, it's good to have commercials, yes, buckle up, and we're going to charge you if you don't have buckle up, and you know, we raise the revenue here by people who pass in the checkpoint and they don't have on their seat belt. And those things are superficial, though important. We need to dig deeper if we really want to correct these roadways and make it safer for people. We have said a long time ago that in some jurisdiction it is mandatory that high school students must learn how to drive as a part of their curriculum before they graduate. When are we going to do this? This is not rocket science. It's not that difficult to institute a program where, as a part of your curriculum, maybe we do it in the senior year, that as you must pass English, maths, and other things for graduation, you must also pass your driving tests. And we are then, over a period of time, guaranteeing that we have more people who are cognizant of the roadways and the rules of driving and et cetera, et cetera. And in some jurisdiction, I believe Bahamas, it is mandatory that the child not only learns the rules of the road, but they must also learn how to change oil, how to, change tire. They must do a number of things in order to ensure that they have a better feel for their vehicle. I think I heard last night one of the reporters pointing out that a lot of people learn to drive, in Kearney by one of the big open lots, and they put them behind the wheel and then they just ride around until they feel a certain comfort behind the wheel and feel as though they could go forward and back up and turn around and et cetera, et cetera. That's not enough to drive on a highway. That is not enough, because there are all kinds of circumstances and all kinds of things that come up while you're on the road that can create responses that you're not prepared for. Welcome, caller. Yes, wa alaikum salam, and welcome, sir. Oh, yes.
That would have been 71 or 72. He was from a prominent family.
Perhaps because of the prominence of the family, yes. I didn't remember that. Thanks for the...
No, I said she was from a prominent family.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
He was from a prominent family.
Oh, he was from a prominent family too?
Yeah, Louis Gabriel.
Yeah.
And then in the Belmopan area, there was a very educated man. He had a bachelor's or master's in agricultural science or something like that, right? I know his first name was Frank, but I can't swear for the last name. But he had been in a fatal traffic accident, driving drunk, and then he did it again. And he was incarcerated for not a long time, but he was, he was punished.
Yeah.
So maybe somebody, of course, other people will know of that incident in Burma.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Nuri.
Thanks very much,
Blessings.
Same. Blessings to you and salamu alaikum. I had an opportunity to work in a prison system in the United States. And the way that they call it DUI, driving under the influence. If you know what they do to people, I don't care what level of the society you there. I saw people in jail who were insurance executive. I saw people who were school teachers. I saw people who had degrees, and they had like the third DUI, and they went to jail. And especially if they kill somebody in that process. They didn't necessarily have to kill somebody. They might have run a traffic light, or you had 3 DUIs. That means you don't get a sense. And so you are put in jail. Why you put people in jail? It doesn't bring the dead back. And sometimes you have to say, well, what is the cost of a life? 10 years, 15 years in jail, 2 years in jail. It is sending the message home, very similar to what people say about hanging. You need to send the message home that this kind of behavior will not be countenanced, it will not be accepted. If you don't get tough, you're not going to change behavior, because behavior cannot be changed by patting me on my shoulder and tell me, man, not do that again, man, lad, man, look what you do, man. We need to be more stringent when it comes to trying to change behavior, because behavior is not changed by simply sitting and talking to somebody. Very few people. It takes a long time for you to make a change psychologically in dealing with people. But just a little stop on front. You pay $2,000 for that man where you run over the orange walk, and then you're back out there riding and drinking. You didn't get the sense. But the family who lost that father, that son, that brother, that mother, is still grieving 10 years later, especially around this Christmas time, when they remember their family who was killed 5 years ago on the road. It's almost, in a sense, the victims of gang violence. You don't forget your son that was murdered. You don't forget those people who were killed as a result of the incessant war with these youths. So why is it that we ease up when it comes to road traffic accident? And I'm saying this because it was resting heavy on my heart from the time the incident happened, and I just didn't bring it up before, but I said this morning I would take a moment to try to bring it across. So as the reporter, I believe it was Channel 7, pointed out, that many people just get behind the wheel and try, and if they're successful riding around the park, riding around 1 or 2 lanes, they figure, well, I know how to drive. And so they get on the roadway. You might be able to drive in Belize City, which is nothing that complicated except for the need for patience. But when you get on the road, you're in a different environment. You're dealing with high-powered vehicles. You're dealing with vehicles that are 2023, 2024, that moves at an average speed of 80 miles, 90 miles an hour. You have people who are, evil Knievel, who want to get out there and run a vehicle at 100 miles an hour, and you don't realize that, guess what, to stop a vehicle requires a certain kind of way in which you're going to stop a vehicle that's going at that speed. Then you have this thing about overtaking. Look, one of my scariest experiences is driving the roads of Belize. Constantly in a sort of a tense environment, because you realize you may be doing the right thing, but the other person may not. And if you are driving, for example, on the George Price Highway, and especially when you're getting around these curves, and you see people that are literally trying to overtake on a curve, all you can do sometimes is move across on the side on the side of the road, and then not run your tire off some of the roads there, because your tire could also get bust up because there's a drop from the pavement to the ground. And so it requires that we spend more time talking about saving lives, and not just when we have a tragedy like 10 people dying on the road, but look and forecast and be proactive and say, look, we want to bring down traffic accidents in 2025. We want to look not only at 2025, but by 2035, we want to ensure that there are more qualified drivers on the road. And then we face a situation here with roadways. And I'm not taking anything away from Mr. Moody, the chief engineer, and the excellent work that we have seen that his people do on the road as compared to the past. But the reality is that our roadways are still very, very dangerous. And I don't know how we could change that. I hear people say, well, one of these days they'll lead two-lane highway will become 4-lane and 6-lane. Well, you will have to buy up a lot of people property along the way because a lot of people have them property right there by the roadside. So how are you going to put a 6-lane highway when I have to bust down your houses that is right on the roadside, not too far? How am I going to do that? How am I going to and I'm not saying it can't be done because engineers can do anything, but look at the cost and look at how that would be put on the back burner because of the enormous cost of trying to bring up the level of our roadways. Again, it's important to understand, and I had to do a little research on this. Most of our third world developing countries have 2-lane highways, especially when it's going from city to city or village to village. They're not multi-lane highways like we see in these developed countries. They are most of the time, 2-way highways. So the best that you can do with them is broaden them as much as possible so that in the event there is a need to maneuver, you don't have just this single lane to maneuver. And then cat eyes. How expensive is cat eyes? And again, I say kudos to Mr. Espat, kudos to Mr. Moody, because we are seeing more, at least in the roads that I travel, you're seeing more cat eyes now. But because of the way we drive and we don't respect cat eye, we run over that cat eye there like so. Therefore, in less than 3 months, 4 months, the cat eye, which was very valuable during the night, is gone. And then the paint is also gone. And it's a very expensive process to maintain, but it will save lives. If we get into certain areas and the markings on the road, the safety of the road is compromised because people can't figure out, and especially when you're driving at night on the Western Road. And this is also when you're talking about Philip Gosen. When you get into certain areas and people are coming with their lights on high beam, and it's as if they don't really know how to turn off that high beam or whatever the case, they just come straight through with that high beam. If you are just a driver that has learned to go to one of these big lots and ride around, you're not capable of maneuvering and understanding how to deal with this. I had to bring these thoughts up because, as I said, I had it for us to at least say my piece on this matter of the road. And then in terms of policy, we've heard the government saying that they are now going to seriously address some of the loopholes. Their policy of the transport department is going to change. We saw last night that their breathalyzer I remember when G. Mike was the press officer for the police department, when he was explaining why they don't use the breathalyzer. I don't even know if they have the legislation in there for breathalyzer. So it's an issue. All right, we'll take our first break for 2 Cents Cam, and after we come back, we do have a guest coming in, and 2 Cents Cam is brought to you by Fort Point Security.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Friday and you're watching WB and Creme Television and Creme Radio. You know, each and every Friday we do Big Up Friday. So make me see who I'm getting big up today. All right?
Big up City. Big up the whole block, you know. Day one.
Big Up Friday.
Yeah, big up on Friday, you know.
Let's say.
Yes, man, big up my work, my job, my own creation, and where I come for work every day. My own job. Yes, man. Bless.
Hi, XTV, big up on yourself. My name is the one and only Karima, known as Riri. You don't know, big up the whole of Lake. I big up my girl Katie. Big up my girls, Randine, Christine. You don't know how it's set up. The thing lit back here, so we live.
Big up Dr. Glenn Espada, St. Catherine's Dental Clinic, and big up myself. Big up my lady at Ladyville. XTV, Brick City. Yes, man, everything blessed.
Yeah, big up Friday. We just want a big up place. You are all our customers' name, man. You don't know. Large up yourself all the time.
All right, welcome back. This is WUB, Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. All right. We now have as our guest in the diaspora, Mr. Mario Lara. Mr. Mario Lara is a Kayo boy who has been living in the States for some time, has qualified himself extensively, actually, and is now the assistant city manager for the city of Sacramento, which is the capital of California. He has been engaged over the last many years, part of it right here on Creme Radio and Creme and XTV, in promoting the voice of the diaspora. And I invited him this morning because of his involvement in the summit that we had back in June. But let me not go ahead of myself. Welcome, my brother.
Good morning, Nuri. It's always a pleasure to join you. Good morning to your listeners both at home and abroad. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we are sorry to wake you up so early in the morning because I know that you're 2 hours.
That's all right. I know they changed the clocks during the fall.
Yes, I don't know. You know, I'm thankful to Mr. Lindy Rogers back in the 70s. I don't know if it was his initiative, but he said, look, why are we changing this thing like the United States? Why don't we just stick with one? So we don't have that issue. Right. But when I was growing up, we had that change of time thing like you're dealing with there in California.
That's right.
Let me jump directly in on the area that I would like you to comment on. Back in June, we had a very, I would say, successful summit. The government has gone to the diaspora on many occasions, but primarily it was motivated by political concerns and gaining political points. And both the UDP and the PUP has done that. But with this summit that took place in June, the politicians were invited to be a part of it, and the Prime Minister, John Bersenio, invested quite a bit of it and was, in fact, there himself at the summit, as well as the leader of the opposition, Mr. Shine Barrow. But it was a people-driven initiative organizing Arya Lightfoot, Ms. Suknandan, and several others of you, including yourself, that organized this summit. Remind us once again, why was that summit given? And now looking many months after that summit, can you point out those things that you think have been achieved as a result of that meeting?
Well, Nuri, I will say this. I was not part of the group that organized the summit itself, but I was invited to participate in one of the panels. And so I flew to LA and I spent a day with the organizers, and it was pretty impressive. You know, it was a multi-day summit, and you had a lot of Belizeans from home, including, as you mentioned, some of our highest level political leaders come and speak to the Belizeans who are living in the Los Angeles area. There was an area for a workshop to help people with any documentation. I think there was a lands workshop that they did. Several panels, you know, discussing a range of topics, you know, from how we can better collaborate with each other in different areas, including sports, development, business, you know, improving governance and what have you. And I think the reason, the whole, I always support, you know, building bridges between Belizeans at home and abroad and continuing the dialogue in any which way I can support that. I think that is important because I've always said that, you know, Belize is a small country. We have a lot of people living in the diaspora, a lot of the talent, a lot of the human resources, talent, living abroad, but that doesn't mean, given the age that we're living in with technology and our ability to share knowledge, I think, you know, it's an asset for Belize, and we should continue to build and strengthen those bridges as much as we can. And it's not, we can't just leave it up to our political leaders to do that. So I was really grateful for the organizers of that summit that took time out of their own busy schedules, because living in the diaspora, contrary to what many might believe, America is not the land of milk and honey, if it ever was. And we have very, very busy lives and busy schedules and hectic work that occupies a lot of our time. But I was very, very, again, pleased and optimistic about what I saw, the number of Belizeans who showed up in large numbers, people who are willing to maintain that tie to Belize and to invest and to give back and to be involved. And that's what it will take. That's what it will take for our little jewel to continue to develop and continue to shine. As far as, in terms of what has been accomplished since the summit has been executed, I don't know that I can point to anything specifically following the summit, but I know that the dialogue continues. It continues in various forums, including via social media. There were other summits held in other cities across the U.S. where you have large concentrations of Belizean population. I know that businesses, people continue to look for opportunities to invest in Belize. And there's also opportunities for philanthropic efforts. Around the time of that summit, there was a big, huge, I think the Lords in the Southern California area organized, Belizeans to put together to get a number of medical equipment that got sent to Belize. And those kinds of efforts will continue and will continue to grow. So I am optimistic, like I said, about the continuation of this conversation.
Yeah, one of the takeaways that one would have thought, and this is my own assessment, so to speak. First of all, big respect to all those who were behind this. We know Mr. Michael Young Jr., we know Aria Lightfoot, we know Miss Eckhart, we know Mose Hyde, we know of several others that were in the background, but just as important in their contribution to what took place in June. But one would have thought that one of the major points that we have been dealing with really over the last 35, 40 years has been this need for a coordinated group of Belizeans in the diaspora who are working as an organized group. I'm trying to avoid organization, but clearly as an organized group. And one of those suggestions that came up as far back as the 80s was the Consortium for Development, the Consortium for Belizean Development, which is still there and which is still active, but on a very low key, not dynamic as it started out to be back in the 80s. And one would have thought that since we don't need to reinvent the wheel, how come the impetus of this new energy coming from, like I said, yourself, Aria, etc., could not get behind, if not using that same name or that same mechanism, start their own along the same lines and ensure that we are not just getting medical equipment from this group in Los Angeles and school bag from this group in Florida and pencils from this group here, etc., etc., which is before organized effort. We thought that this organized effort on the part of the consortium and this initiative that you started in June would have coalesced, so to speak, brought together all these talented persons and revive an organized, coordinated involvement of the diaspora on so many different levels in the development of Belize. Why do you think we have not been able to move in that direction and still continue to be for want of a better word, sort of helter-skelter and doing it here and there.
Yeah, Nuri, that remains a challenge, to have this umbrella, overarching organization to pull all the various disparate groups that are well-meaning and well-intended and working hard, really,
and extremely talented,
to
Mario.
connect it and to give back.
Yeah.
And I think part of the challenge is that Belize. I mean, when you even look at home, I always talk about diversity has its challenges. We have various groups back home that are working towards addressing some of the many issues that Belize faces, and they often work in silos rather than working in solidarity with each other, and often work at cross purposes to each other, even though their missions and values, stated missions and values, are similar. And I think it's just a challenge that comes with our diverse population groups and even the diaspora. When you look at the Belizean diaspora, we're a very diverse group ourselves. The group of Belizeans that are in LA are different from the group of Belizeans that are in New York, or they're different from the group of Belizeans that are in Houston or Florida. We share certain cultural traits and values, yes, but we're living in different areas across the globe, and we adapt to the areas where we live, and so getting one overarching umbrella group remains a challenge. Even the time zone issues, there are things that we have to work out. Well, I remember when I was at the summit, I mentioned that, you always have these groups that are organizing Belizean festivities, right? We celebrate our 10th of September and our September and Independence Day celebrations. We're always having the Belizean festivals, food, celebrating our culture, our arts. And I always say, wouldn't it be good that, we pay money to go and participate in these things, and it would be good if a portion of that proceed could go towards funding an organization such as you're talking about. But that will take a tremendous amount of, coordination, partnership, organization, like you said. You have to, form a legal entity to do those things. You have to file taxes to do those things. You have to put together a lot of resources in order to sustain that kind of effort. And so far, I think that has eluded the groups of Belizeans abroad. But, is it the most critical thing that we need in order to advance this this project of having Belizeans abroad participate in the development of Belize and the future of Belize? Maybe, but not necessarily. I still see a lot of good work being done, Nuri. Yes, we can't just do these one-off efforts to collect donations and send things back home, but little by little, like you said, it's under the surface. It's percolating. I see a lot of conversations happening and taking place, and I do see a lot of Belizeans looking more towards Belize, especially in these troubled times that we're facing here in the U.S. I think that orients us a little bit more towards back home. So there's a bright side to everything, right? And I think these things just take ongoing, long-term efforts, and I think, I think the summit might not have yielded as a jolt, I guess, towards organizing an umbrella organization, Nuri, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
It's a good step. I want you to stay with us, Mario. We'll take another break and we'll come back. I have many more questions to ask you, for you to weigh in on this morning. Please stay tuned.
Zingmas 2024. That's right, it's a Zingmas celebration. Live on
All right, welcome back. We're talking with Mr. Mario Lara in the California city of Sacramento. Welcome back, Mario. Yeah, I'm still hearing the theme song.
Yes, yes.
You're hearing me, right? All right, good. Okay. We were talking about the involvement of going beyond remittances and sending medical equipment here and footballs here, basketballs here, etc., etc., and ask the question about us coming together as an organized group in the diaspora. I say this because while many states recognize years ago, decades ago, the value of their diaspora, one of them is Israel. Israel has a fantastic relationship with its diaspora. As a matter of fact, it allows citizenship to its diaspora even if they were born abroad. It allows them to even vote in their elections. So there are some countries, certain jurisdictions, that this idea of involving your diaspora is decades they've been involved in this. But it seems to be something that we've been trying to develop over the last decade or two in Belize, and more specifically, I say, over the last 20 years or so with the development, or 30 years or so with the development of the consortium. But the consortium has not been as robust as the vision of Mr. Leng. Dr. Edward Leng wrote out a document that when you read that document, you see something that is so innovative that any developing country grabs something like that can see this is an organized and structured way on all these varying levels for us to involve our diaspora. And by the way, I think you know, Mario, that several African states have been doing exactly what we're doing. In fact, when our summit was going on in Los Angeles, I believe it was the nation of Ghana, or one of those African states in the western part of Africa, I don't think it was Nigeria, I think it was Ghana, was doing their diaspora summit at the same time that we were doing ours. The point I think I'm drawing here is that this is a low-hanging fruit, as they say, that, you know, it's not rocket science, it's not that complicated, and with minds like yours and Aria, Ms. Eckert and Mr. Michael Young and so many others, the talent base to make it happen is there. Here you also, in Belize, you have an innovative minister of tourism who is supporting the idea of diaspora development. In fact, he's created a desk and whole office that is focused on the diaspora. So the question has to be, why is it that we are still 4 years into this administration, still just at an ambassadorial level and not further engaged in some of the things that are so easy to get involved in as an organized group in Belize? Now, I hear you saying, and I totally agree, we got an ego problem in terms of who that the boss, and we at New York, we all at Hunu, LA, you know, that probably is a human condition that we will not be able to change. But we need to know how to work despite those kinds of challenges because other countries are doing it. So I'm putting it to you as one of those thinkers and one of those qualified organizers as to what should be the next step within this administration and the next administration. In fact, you remember that when Shine Barrow, the leader of the opposition, met with us in a sort of a caucus, he made the statement that if he becomes the prime minister in the first year of his administration, he will pave the way for people in the diaspora to vote in the Belizean election. I don't know if you remember that statement which he made. But it was very profound, and many scratched their head and said, well, I wonder how he can do that given the dynamics of Belize. But he did say that. And I think it is not that far-fetched if we put our minds towards that kind of thinking, because we've probably got, as Sandra was pointing out yesterday, 250,000 Belizeans that might be living in the States that we are not properly documenting. So I'm throwing that to you. How do we move from just events like the summit or having an ambassador, you know, of diaspora development, and really get down into the hard work of making this thing a reality?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I have to give credit to the current administration that actually put it in a ministry. So you have the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora Relations, and you do have some, maybe not a significant amount of resources, but you do have dedicated resources that are oriented towards developing this exact thing that you're talking about. And there was staff from that ministry who attended the summit in LA and attended various summits across the globe. As far as I'm aware, this year there's been a lot of effort in terms of reaching out to diaspora from the current administration. So I have to give credit where credit is due. You know, establishing it in a ministry, creating allocating resources towards the effort, and actually you know, starting to establish relationships, I think is important. I was having some interesting conversations with the staff when I was in LA, you know, about, you know, it feels like you're starting from scratch every time you engage in these efforts. The previous administration prior to that had a diaspora desk, not a ministry, but had a diaspora desk. But I was asking, hey, I recall that there was a bunch of surveys done and trying to get people in the diaspora to register so that they could have a database of Belizeans who are living abroad and that sort of thing. Was any of that information shared? You know, and apparently, you know, when one administration leaves and a new administration comes in, sometimes the effort, you know, has to restart all over again, and there was a little bit of that. But even in the last year too, I know the current administration engaged with a group of Belizeans abroad. Some of the same names, you know. You know, I know Arya Lightfoot was part of it. Ray Gongora was part of it. Dr. Genety was part of it in terms of participating in the People's Constitution effort that was going on. So there's a lot of different little things that are happening to further the cause that you're talking about, Nuri, and to strengthen, I guess, how the administration, and I use that term not as a political, but how government officials at home, Belizeans at home, are able to tap into the resources that Belizeans abroad have. Before we went on the break, you asked me about you know, organizations. Why don't we have this kind of umbrella organization? And I do think that I'm starting to see some efforts along those lines. There's one organization that I would mention, Build Belize Inc. I think is a nonprofit organization that's operating both in Belize and abroad, and it's not just events driven. It's not just about donations and trying to connect donations, but it's about being engaged in the sports arena, the educational arena, and community services arena, and trying to you know, bridge some of those gaps. So there's some there's a lot that I think is happening, Nuri, and if you talk to some other Belizeans, there's a lot of people involved in a lot of different things that are going on, and I think that's good.
Yeah, well, it's clear. It's clear that you're seeing, to use the analogy of dots, there's effort here, there's effort here, but there's such a thing as connecting the dots, and that is where we fall short. For example, this minister responsible for diaspora has gone way out to ensure that there is a program, Naval String Connection. It is out of his ministry that Creme TV, or I should say XTV, is able to sponsor that program. So it's a clear sign that that minister envisions that to keep information flowing and keep a voice weekly in the conversation of Belizeans in the diaspora is a big step forward. But there's far more that can be achieved. For example, I mean, I don't mean to expose your background, but you are at a very highly technical level, man. You're the city assistant city manager or deputy city manager of one of the largest cities in California. And so imagine the level of experience that you have in just the governance process, and how, if we respect what you bring to the table, think about how much you can assist, maybe as a committee, maybe as a representative in some of these committees that we have, having a diaspora representative on that committee, to be able to have an input from that experience that you've gained there, to be able to assist us with some of the projects that we're dealing with. You take, for example, our trying to revive and to streamline and to bring in focus the need to lower our traffic incidents, and what we can do to improve that. Man, it's not a problem to get people like yourself with low levels of qualification to be able to sit on those committees. I mean, look, you're talking to us in California, and you know, I'm seeing you, you're seeing me, so the technology is there for you to be present in these meetings and make an input in these projects that we're trying to get off the ground. My point, I think, is that we got to keep government, but we also have to keep you with your feet to the fire, that you cannot sit and say, well, we've had a summit and, you know, and so we've done good. No, you should already be involved in the planning of the summit for next year, 2025, so that we could take the summit to another level. Huh?
I'll share this, Nuri. I mean, using me, my personal example, I mean, I'm a very low-key individual. You know, I am not, you know, every time you kind of put yourself out there, you become a target. You know, and Belize is a very small place. It's like you're in a fishbowl, right? And people tend to think that you have certain ambitions.
Agenda,
you become kind of a public figure, and I'm not about that, and I'm not into that. But I do love my country, and I do participate. I support certain causes within Belize, and I visit Belize once a year. Normally, this time of year, I would be in Belize because this is the typical time of year when I have a downtime in the work that I do. You know, typically the elected body and the governmental work that I do tends to go dark during this time, and I have time to go back to Belize. And every time I have ever gone back to Belize, I've always visited the town hall from the town where I live in San Ignacio. I've met with Mayor Trapp. The last time I went, I met with his administrator, his town administrator, who's no longer in that role. And I share observations. I talk about ideas about, you know, how the town could generate revenues to address certain blight conditions, and share ideas and suggest. But I do that at a very low key, kind of understated way, because I've noticed in the past, right, when I've shared some of my thoughts or ideas or things either through social media or a little bit more vocally, people ascribe certain motivations that are not true, and so I'm not about that. Me personally, I don't want to be, you know, I would love to serve on any committee that anybody feels like I could be of value to, and I would make myself available. But to be honest, you know, I'm pretty sure that there are way more accomplished Belizeans than myself, doing great things all over the globe, and we should all, you know, continue to orient ourselves towards Belize and do things.
I think, I think what I'm trying to get across, Mario, is that we have to stop treat our Belizeans abroad like stepchildren or like adopted children. that yes, you got a voice, but we can't bring you around the table, man. We got you in at the house already, so no push yourself too much. No, man. I go back to the vision of Mr. Golson.
I think the onus is on us to prove ourselves as well and to build that trust and confidence. But you've proven yourself. This is the thing I'm saying, that the diaspora has proven itself. We've got talented people here who, for whatever reason, sometimes politics, sometimes economics, have decided to move from Belize and to go to diaspora. And they have succeeded. Like yourself, they've gone up in the you know, if you want to use Maslow's hierarchical thing, they've gone up. They're almost to the point of self-realization. They know what they're about, and they are ready to engage. We need to have people, and I say again, kudos to Mr. Mala, that we need people in high authority to see that and to make the connection. And then they'll make us hear that such and such a committee has been formed, and so from the diaspora is a diaspora representative on that committee. That means we've gone a few steps more from the summit, we've gone more from the radio program and TV program. We're now engaging, and we eventually would like to see maybe one of you serve on the Senate. I mean, there are all kinds of ways that we could do, and there's so many models all over the place. We're not reinventing no wheel. We are just trying to push it a little bit further. Look, you talk about you don't want to be, you're not ambitious in the way of selfishly trying to get something. You're just trying to give. I think most of the people in diaspora that I have dealt with, they don't have no political ambition or no, they just want to give. And so we have to be creative enough to be able to set up the mechanism in this day and time. AI then say, want to run things in a few years. Man, should we allow that to pass us up? Should we allow these, as most like say, low-hanging fruit to go without us picking it? To reach out to and bring in some of the expertise and experience from the diaspora, and that the governmental administration could definitely benefit from that. But I say that, and I also say this, that if there are any Belizeans abroad that are listening that want to be involved and get more involved in Belize, they certainly have the ability to do that, Nuri. And I'm a perfect example. A lot of my investment efforts, and I'm in a few months I may be retiring. I don't want to say that publicly.
You're too young for that, man.
Who knows?
Don't make that gray hair fool you, man.
But my whole retirement plan is oriented towards Belize, and so I think a lot of Belizeans living abroad are thinking that way. I know just in my personal circles, I've known quite a few Belizeans who have gone back and retired to Belize, but they give back in their very quiet, muted way, because, like I said, one of the things that we enjoy as Belizeans living in the diaspora is anonymity. We don't live in that small fishbowl, right? Where everything that you do is scrutinized and commented on social media.
And you're not desperate, because that's one of the political things here, is even though we're talented and we know what to do, and people see that we know what to do, you're put in a kind of a frame here where you need to bow to the political directorate in order for you to give or get an opportunity to participate. And so a lot of people who don't want to lower themselves to that, or feel frustrated that you recognize me, you want I bow to a political ideology, we need to go beyond that. This is not the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s where we need to
and that's why I've advocated to strengthen
we show by our works how much we love Belize.
I think partisan politics is partly what is holding us back.
All over the place.
We see that tribalism and party politics, even here in the great United States, is creating some challenges.
That's right.
For this country. Those strict partisan loyalties doesn't serve a nation extremely well. So that's why I have been advocating that if a government really wants to tap into its human resources and and be kind of an inclusive country, I think we should facilitate Belizeans abroad being able to vote, because I think they would vote more. You know, they would be. It'd be harder, I
I think
think,
so. Time and distance
this
does not make that
clientelism
much.
that we see happening
Yeah.
back home, where Wali, you know, promise you one job or promise you
Yeah.
only $50, forget your vote.
And we are controlled. We are controlled by that. The majority of us are controlled.
Right.
Like, my daughter now get a scholarship, so boy, I want to say something. I don't really mean it against no minister.
And not only that,
but
you
I
have
can't
to
say
mute
it
yourself.
because
You have to mute your
like,
voice, because you can't speak out too loudly, because if you try to do a business and you know the administration could go and shut you down if you criticize too much, well, you want to stay quiet.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
Mario, hold on. I don't want you keep quiet. So I want to bring you back right after this break. I know you have to go to work, but please give us another few minutes and we'll take advantage of your presence here. So we go to our next break. having an interesting conversation with our brother. I'm still hearing some noise here. All right. We are in a conversation with Mario Lara, one of our Belizean brothers in California, and we're talking about diaspora involvement in development. I want to open the phone lines now, Mario. Our numbers here is 2805848, 2805848 if you'd like to join in the conversation. We still have about 10 minutes left in the show. Mario, you notice that this was very interesting to me. Well, it wasn't interesting. I mean, I could understand why. That the two biggest clinics at that summit it went almost beyond the hours allotted for the summit, was the immigration concerns that Belizeans abroad had and land concerns. And I mean, the lines were so long to get into both of those areas. You remember that, right? In fact, I understand that the immigration department came the day before, and that in fact both lands and the immigration came before the summit even started officially. And the Minister of Immigration, who happens to be the Prime Minister, was there, along with his CEO, Ms. Tanya. And the same thing went for the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Cordell Hyde, who was there personally involving himself with the diaspora and promoting the services of his department, of his ministry, as well as his CEO. So the point I'm making here is that while a lot of those who showed up to the summit did not actually go in and listen to some of the very important presentations that were made there, the majority of them went for their needs. And it was clear that the need that many diaspora people saw was, I want to get my papers or my passport or my other things that I normally have to travel way to Belize to try to get done. Here it is that they bring the clinic to me. So very innovative on the part of both Mr. Briceño and Mr. Hyde. But it's only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all the needs that Belizeans abroad have. And why should we have to wait for a summit to address these needs? Why is it that that cannot be done through you, meaning through an organized diaspora that is able to do that? And I'm not one of those persons who scratch their heads and say, boy, I don't know how to do it. We could apply ourselves until we find it. Don't wait for AI to give us an answer as to how to do that. We can apply ourselves and find out what kind of mechanisms can we set up to be able to facilitate those kinds of services. Not just with lands, not just with immigration, but we have an issue here with young people who are having very serious challenges and also need the successes of what is going on over there to be able to address those concerns. So I'm putting it back on you as a member of the diaspora, that we need to do more. Yes, government here needs to do more, NGOs here needs to do more, and mostly in my mindset here, we just need to get out of this box and think freely. But a lot of it is right there on the talented group that we have there, which of course you, Aria, Ms. Edkirk, Mr. Michael Young, and others, Mr. Ray Gongora, you all are part of that mindset. And really, because I have been involved in this thing going all the way back to 1985, 1986, 87, when Mr. Golson's vision was really driving the diaspora conversation. It was Mr. Golson that in fact inspired Mr. Eddie Lang and Mr. Bert Tucker and Mr. York and Mr. Warren and all these names. Some of them have passed on. In fact, all of them have passed on. But they were the early area of trying to, kind of put this thing together. That is not taking away from the fact that I saw a clip that, the man who, Mr. Young, who was part of the writing the music for the national anthem, as well as Mr. There were several names that I can't remember all of them, but this goes way back into the 50s. They were also trying to pull something together. And then in the 60s, we had Mr. Compton Fairweather also trying to do something along that line. But of course, because so many of those in diaspora that were making noise were anti-PUP, anti-George Price, because of thinking that George Price was giving the country away to Guatemala, that became their focus. So that anybody who came up with as a PUP kind of had a negative against them. And then the propaganda in the PUP was, say they don't love Belize, then done, then they run from the country. We don't want, if you don't want to come back to Belize, stay there. So we created an emotional, political kind of way in which we were dealing with this very valuable resource called diaspora in our development.
It's interesting, Nuri, that you bring that up, that the lines on the clinics, the land clinics and the immigration clinics were so long. And it speaks a bit to the diversity of the needs of the Belizean people that's living abroad. Like I don't need a land clinic and an immigration clinic because I am fortunate enough to have the resources to where when I need those things, I can go into a consulate or I can fly back to Belize and get those things taken care of. But we have many Belizean brothers and sisters who, we don't like to admit this, we are economic refugees.
Yeah.
We didn't leave Belize because we don't love Belize and,
Yes.
and because we don't want Belize. A lot of our brothers and sisters left Belize because they didn't have enough opportunity back home.
Yes.
I left because I wanted an education, and when I graduated, at the time, Belize did not have a national university. At the time, an associate's degree is all that you could get in Belize. And I never left Belize with the intention of staying abroad any number of years. I was simply trying to get educated, but I think a lot of our other Belizeans leave because they have even less opportunity than I had. They didn't have land. They didn't have any hopes of getting access to land. They didn't have good prospects for jobs. And we all know that you can earn a pretty good living here in the U.S. doing house care, child care,
and packing boxes, my brother. Yes.
in all kinds of industries where you don't need. If you don't have the opportunity to get an education, you can still make a decent living, and we know that a lot of that gets sent back home.
Yes.
Because remittances is close to 5 to 10% of GDP, and it gets sent back home to take care of children. Sometimes children or parents or people, loved ones who they had to leave behind in order to find these opportunities. So those long lines, clearly, many of our citizens left Belize not because they don't love Belize and because they don't care about Belize and they forgot about their culture or their country or whatever. They clearly left Belize as economic refugees, and they needed help, and they need help. They need help, just like the Belizeans back home. They still need help. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention, Nuri, those are government services. Immigration services, land services, those are government services, and yes, private entities can get involved. I don't understand with today's technology why a lot of those transactions can't occur online. You can't apply for your piece of land online rather than go stand in line. Even when you're back home, you have to go stand in line to Belmopan. And if you live at PG or you live way up north, you have to take a day out of your work to go, and sometimes you don't even get the transaction done that you wanted to get done. So there's a lot of inefficiency back home. There's a lot of, having an event here, but people did that because there's no other way. There was the only opportunity that they had to try to get something done. And clearly there's a gap. There's a huge gap there, and I'm not in the technology field, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of Belizeans abroad who work in that arena, and I would wish the government could partner and harness some of that potential to move more of these government services online. Because that, and I know there was an effort, there's an effort to move government services online. We're living in an age and technology where that is totally possible for a small country like Belize that don't have the resources to invest in a lot of infrastructure and that kind of thing. I think that would be the way to go.
Yeah, indeed.
So that did strike me as well when I was there. I was like, wow, you know. And then there's this other thing that's going on to Nuri, where I keep hearing, and I'm concerned. I'm watching it with a concerned eye. The ethnic tensions that are happening in Belize because of the displacement of people. You know, we have more Latin American immigrants arriving into Belize, and the same tensions that I see here in the U.S., I see mirrored in Belize with the number of immigrants who are replacing either Belizeans who have left or displacing Belizeans currently in terms of getting jobs and land and different services from the government.
Indeed.
I see that tension rising. So that is why it's really important for the Belizeans who have that roots connection to Belize, roots culture, the Belizean diaspora, the Belizean populations that are living in LA, in Houston, in New York, in Florida. You know, to it's even more important that we tap into that and we connect to that so that we can maintain our cultural flavor. You know, the Creole culture, a distinctly Belizean culture.
Yes.
I think it's really important that we tap into that and we offer services to the Belizeans who are economic refugees, so that they can either go back or give back and help to alleviate some of those tensions that we're seeing. Change is going to happen no matter one way or the other. We're going to have change. We're going to experience change. Culture is going to change. Even the Belizeans living here have a different culture now, and when they go back, they bring other elements to Belize. I think, again, not to get into politics too much, but part of the tensions you're seeing happening in the United Democratic Party is because you have a Belizean aspiring for, he's the leader of the party as far as I'm aware, you know, or he's the leader of the opposition who ostensibly grew up in the United States.
Yes.
You know, so he's a
diaspora boy. You can't.
A different culture, a different way of interacting and of being and of pushing things. You know, he's got kind of that New York flavor that he has now brought into the political landscape in Belize, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, it's interesting because there will be more Belizean male and female coming from the diaspora wanting to get involved. So he is almost like a test case for us.
I think this whole connection is changing our culture. It's changing our dynamics.
Indeed.
You know, and I think in the future, I believe that whether you like it or not, in the future you will see more of that, more of the shine bars, more of the Belizeans that kind of grew up here, because there's lots of Belizeans like him who don't have their U.S. papers, right, but who have gained knowledge and experience that they can go back home and be very competitive.
Indeed.
You know, and I think you're going to see more of that.
And
it's not only oftentimes we often think, oh, you know, they want to deport all the gangbang. It's not that. That's a problem. But we also have a lot of Belizeans who are here working in a fast-paced, developed, competitive environment, and they're going to bring that back with them. You know, as they return to Belize, or if they're forced to return to Belize.
Indeed.
You know, so I think you'll see that dynamic more and more.
I think so too.
You know?
Yeah. It's a changing time. And,
it is.
You know, we can kind of like sit back and sort of just observe this process, or we can get engaged at some level in the changes that we're seeing. One of the things that I am seeing, and this is my last comment, and I'll ask you for your last comment, is that you talk about the diversity. When you study the history, a significant amount of African Belizeans or Creole Belizeans, Garifuna Belizeans, if you want to use those terms, have migrated to America. Many of them have succeeded, have made success of themselves. And not fool yourself. A lot of them depend on welfare and things like that. Not fool yourself. A lot of Jamaican, a lot of Salvadorian, a lot of people that take advantage of that. So no cost Belizeans, when we do that, we're just moving like the rat finds the cheese, as real Lightburn used to say. But guess what's happening also? Many of our Central American new Belizeans who are moving in and educating themselves and allowing themselves to grow in the economy and therefore have money. When you look at many of the commercials, whether it's bank, whether it's Brody's, whether it's any of these other commercial areas, the complexion of those in the commercial are getting lighter and lighter, and Hispanic, and get less dark people are there. You could go to Jamaica and look at the commercials in Jamaica, you see Jamaican. But when you look at the commercials in Belize, you start to ask yourself, that where did they make these commercials? Did they make them in Honduras, or did they make them in Chetumal or something like that? Because they look as though they're using lone Hispanics in most of these commercials. And I don't want to call out any of them, but the Christmas commercials, you can't find only black boy in there. No, I'm not introducing racism here. I'm simply telling you the dynamics
but I would say even the coat of arms, they get lighter and lighter.
At one point, you turn yellow and all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we're always worried about losing our Creole heritage and identity.
Indeed.
There's a lot of people who are doing some good work. Deetra Gillett comes to mind in social media. She's a historian that is helping us to understand more our Creole roots.
Yes, and appreciate. Yes.
But again, I'm worried about this whole the tensions that I see rising, right, with the number of Latin American immigrants who are coming into our country, and then we cast with a wide net, right? Everybody will look, a little bit like the shade or look Spanish.
Why we don't?
It's gonna cause some conflict, and I'm very worried about that. I think Belize is very unique. We should hold on to our unique flavors in Central America. I don't know who coined the term, Caribbean jewel in the heart of Central America or that kind of thing. But I think we should certainly embrace, our Black heritage, our ties to Africa, and our ties to Caribbean culture, our ties to I always have this. I have a cousin that he and I go. We do some hot debates and conversations, and I say, look, I'm not one for. I hate the identity politics, right? I don't want that for Belize. Belize was always a multicultural, multilingual, many shades, of people, and that's what makes us extremely beautiful and wonderful, because I remember growing up. I mean, heck, my granny, we talked Spanish when I was growing up, so I don't have a problem with hearing people speaking Spanish. Creole is not the only language. We grew up speaking Spanish, English, and Creole. And a few Mayan words here and there. I eat chachak. Tumkurushu, the word for owl, and we have little words. I love it. I love the fact that we are such a diverse country, but I understand that the challenges that diversity brings, and I always say it, a lot of my comments about some of the problems and issues that we're facing in Belize is just a lack of solidarity. People are even now questioning George Price. Always we had George Price. The whole George Price, Philip Wilson, kind of conflict. And that is part of our national identity, I guess. It's something that we will continue to struggle with, but I hope that we can keep it at a level where it is not. We don't become embroiled, because you see the conflict that's happening in places like Israel and Gaza. You see that kind of conflict that's happening, or even in Guyana. You have ethnic tensions there. That's part of their politics, and I just hope that we can avoid that path where the PUP become the light skin party and the UDP become the dark skin party. That would be a tragedy and a travesty if that were to happen. And I hope we can avoid that. By
let's take it back to
by
education,
continuing this
rather
kind of
than
open dialogue and not being too caught up in terms of our, whether we're light skin or dark skin or anything. I mean, Belize is a Creole country for sure. It's a diverse country for sure. We're an English-speaking country, predominantly English-speaking, common part of the Commonwealth. We have to embrace our Caribbean roots and our identity and maintain those ties. But I think we can do it, you know. And I think the Belizeans abroad, the Belizeans in the diaspora, who are at the age like I am, in terms of being able to retire and go back to Belize, can contribute towards that as well, towards that maintaining that identity that we've always had as being a West Indian, Caribbean kind of flavor country in Central America.
Good, my brother. Thank you very much. You know, it needs to be discussed more. We look at ourselves here at XTV and this program in the morning as a forum of ideas, a forum of developing a new consciousness. We can only look back at the past. We can't relive the past. We're going into the future. But the past has a lot of education if it is done properly. And that's what we try to do on this program in the mornings, to try to ensure that we're not small-minded, but that we have a very large agenda in front of us. I want to thank you because we're out of time, Mario. I can't even get a final word from you because I'm really out of time. But I thank you. The conversation has been engaging, and I hope that those who missed it can pick it up later on YouTube and Facebook and can continue the conversation. And you know, I'm going to ask you and Aria and others to come on the program because we need to keep this conversation going. I want to thank you again, brother Mario Lara. All right, we'll take our final break and then we'll be back to close off.
Zingmas 2024. That's right. It's
right, thank you very much for being with us today for the last couple of hours. We had an interesting conversation with Mr. Mario Lara out of Sacramento, California, and we appreciate him dedicating his time to engage us in this conversation. We want to thank those who were in the background, Anthony G. downstairs, Mr. Cliff Lewis, and Miss Alexi Belide were those persons who were in the background to bring you the program this morning. And yeah, that's about it. So Belizeans, stand strong and stand firm and remember to do the right thing. Miss Lisa? Man, how you see, you want to switch up on me? Oh yeah? All right, Miss Lisa. All right, Miss Lisa. All right. I mean, I don't got nothing against Tony, but I will prefer you all the time. So thank you very much, Miss Lisa, for being there. Belizeans, stand strong and stand firm and remember to do the right thing. For now, we gone!